Tesla with a $52,000 SUV becomes the usable market leader when it comes to electric SUVs. And this is why we saw a nice 200-point jump in the stock price, which is what we explore today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We want to thank Bob Lutz for his comments regarding where Tesla is going. We also want to thank those of you who support us on Patreon. Your support is greatly appreciated, makes all the difference in our existence and prosperity. We also want to request that you consider like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. So there's a concept. We've been working with our show on Tesla for about 5 years. About 3 years ago, there's an executive who was considered, who's currently, I believe, a Tesla employee, but she was a long-time analyst covering Tesla for hedge funds and others who needed independent research. And so she presented this concept called usable market. And what that means is that it turns out that there are actually, as you drop the price of a vehicle, the usable market for that vehicle increases. So for example, Tesla came out and indicated they'd have a $69,000 Model Y that they would present in the Chinese market as a Chinese vehicle. Because of a lot of reasons, that price dropped from $69,000 to a starting number of $52,000 approximately dollars in China. This triggered what is stated to have been an extra 100,000 people that decided to sign up to order that vehicle. It's also had other impacts because it was recently announced that NIO was downgraded as a result of the potential for Tesla competition at those price points. A sidebar note I should say is that this really illustrates one of the brilliant points about Elon Musk. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are very focused on the quality of their technology, but may not always think about how the cost of that technology may influence things. So, for example, everybody wants a Learjet, but the percentage of people who can afford a $300 ticket is far greater than the number of people who can afford that Learjet. So the marginal utility is very high of that jet. It's just how many people can afford it. So when we switch over to a conversation about electric vehicles, and in this case Tesla, what we're kind of angling for is the fact that Bob Lutz had announced that in April of 2017 is the video we have. He kind of articulates the fact that Tesla is really doomed because they were going to face up in luxury SUVs against the likes of GM, BMW, Mercedes, and other OEMs with very deep pockets to create those vehicles. He further indicated that you're looking at as many as 100 models being introduced by all of those entities, which really spelled doom for Tesla going forward. So the interesting part is this whole question of usable market. The number of people that can afford a $52,000 vehicle around the world is probably triple the number of people that can fit a $70,000 vehicle into their budget. I did some quick calculations. It turns out a $50,000 vehicle works out to $1,067 for a payment, and a $70,000 vehicle is approximately $1,650 for that payment. So it illustrates how different these vehicles might hit the budget of different consumers, initially obviously in China, but around the world. So based on all the information that came out last week, this concept of usable market seems to have played heavily in the decision-making of the analysts in their upgrading Tesla's numbers, because all of a sudden you have a pretty aggressively priced vehicle that's well below ICE vehicles in the same territory, and then you look around the world to see how many people can afford that 50,000 vehicle. Let's say that's the number after subsidies. You all of a sudden have a lot larger marketplace for that, which puts a really good shot at Tesla being able to deliver perhaps 1 million vehicles this year, not only because they can build them, but because you have a consumer base that could actually afford them. And then the other note here is that, yes, all the manufacturers Bob described have the capability to deliver luxury SUVs and, in theory, electric luxury SUVs. But the question mark is, if those vehicles are $70, $80, $90, $100,000, what's the usable market for those vehicles, and what percentage of them is already consumed by Tesla vehicles like the Model X that are up in those price frames? So, I think it's great. The next thing is that we start to extrapolate, well, how are the numbers going to look going into other places? And one of the issues that's coming up is, once the factory for the Model Y opens in Germany, in theory, the only cost difference will be labor cost difference for internal components, as well as the actual labor to put the vehicles together. So theoretically, it's only going to be 2 or 3K more for Germany-produced Model Y versus what the current costs are in China. So we'll see if this comes out to be the case. But it's entirely possible that Tesla may choose on the low end to ship their Model Ys out of China globally and simply keep growing the size. The next issue that comes up in terms of Tesla's dominance is how the whole supercharger network is playing out. Now, NIO came up with a great idea, which was to put smaller battery packs in and offer to swap out for longer battery packs if people were on longer trips. Great idea. The way Tesla gets the same thing done is simply offering a charging network with high speed, high quality charge available. And so you can simply move between chargers. So Tesla is allowed then to offer lower priced vehicles because they have smaller battery packs. But with 175 miles max between each of those charging stations, Tesla has a demonstrated advantage over other individual. The other issue that's popped up, obviously, is Tesla's ability to tier pricing based on using CATL and LG batteries at the low end, different composition, more weight, but less costly. And as we've talked about, there is this question mark about, how does the price point affect the size of the market that you would be selling into? And I think Tesla just has a competitive advantage here if it's able to deliver a quality Model Y for $52K. It just answers the question easily. So, the primary goal of this conversation was to really just focus on the fact that it has been said, and I thought it would be the case as well, that the large OEMs, i.e. General Motors, Daimler, and others, would by now, 3 years after that 2017 comment by Bob Lutz, be able to close Tesla out. But it turns out that there's this problem of usable market and pricing. And so GM and others have now started to move like Tesla to do a co-build of these plants to make sure they can get the battery building capabilities of LG and others, while at the same time partnering on costs so they can get their costs for batteries and the battery packs in line so they can eventually come after Tesla. But they haven't achieved that yet, and they still need scale batteries once they do achieve it. So Tesla still has a lead and an edge, and with the new battery Elon is actually building, it sort of opens up another issue that these large manufacturers are going to have to deal with. So, again, we're really making this our marginal utility combined with usable market question, and just highlighting the fact that Bob was right, that the large OEMs have the footprint in terms of large manufacturing facilities, dealer networks, that are competitive advantages, and other sort of history in the business that Tesla does not have. But when it comes to optimizing on this marginal utility based on cost of vehicle, they really at a disadvantage. As I've said a number of times, Elon really shows himself off because, as he's discussed previously, one of the reasons he became CEO is that he actually had an individual who, Mr. Eberhard, who he had hired, and Elon indicated that he needed a $100,000 car once the S was done. Mr. Eberhard said yes to that, but internally was building a $150,000 car. And when Elon realized that he was lying, he fired him, and that's when he became CEO, because he had a very strict price target that he had in mind that the Model S had to come in at. And he indicated that if we come in at that 150, we're going to sell 3 of them and pretty much not have a company. Hence, he took over as CEO. This is really impressive, as I shared, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the Valley rolling towards very high quality, great technology, but not being sensitive to the marginal utility price point for customers is a huge issue. And Elon really shows a competitive advantage by harping on the point and aggressively going after it at every opportunity possible. So we have to give him kudos for doing this, and it shows why Tesla is doing so well. And frankly, it also shows why VW is eagerly working on their IDE project to try to fit into the marketplace in a similar fashion to Tesla at the low end of the price curve as possible to get the W. The next thing, so this finishes up our formal discussion of sort of Tesla for today and why it is that all of a sudden the stock price started running on upgrades, and then we had the S&P effect come on the back end, whereas the stock was rising. They're taking a larger percentage of the S&P and therefore are experiencing price increases on that basis as well. So I think it's a nice collection of issues that are occurring, and I think that it bodes well for Tesla, particularly as we come into earnings and then see how other questions are answered about where China is going, especially with the large number of Model Ys that are being ordered. So this formally finishes up our Tesla discussion. We next get into our health tips. Don't forget 25 leg lifts a day if possible. Strengthens quad muscles, reduces the chance of knee issues or operations. Also wanted to encourage you to consider the 5-2 or some other diet. Many of the doctors we surveyed, about 60%, are doing some kind of fasting diet. Also wanted to encourage you to think about a SPF of 30 or better to avoid skin cancer. Also wanted to mention, do not go to bed within 4 hours of eating, ideally 2 hours minimum. And then finally, we wanted to suggest that prior to lovemaking, think about a very small salad. It will allow blood flow to the stomach to be minimized and optimize blood flow to other parts of the body when it comes to this aspect. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. E bueno è la vita, Italian, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Chinese, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ohio gozaimasu, Japanese, bonjour, ça va, French, Tschüss, German, hey do, Swedish, and in Jamaica we say, Nuff respect, wa good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.